What's up? This is University's better known as Kyle D. I'm bringing you guys the weekly meta report. So we're going to take a look, break down what's topped. Not a lot of deck lists to show off this episode just because it seems to be people forget to post a picture. I'm going to go on the assumption I've gotten a lot. I topped with this, but no picture. I mean, I could easily sit there and try to get them, but we got a few spicy lists to talk about, and I think it's time to get into it, shall we? So yeah, let's get into this video. It looks like Kurapika is definitely still top dog, and there is nothing that has changed on that data point, and it's still holding strong in that regime. Now taking into the top 7 to 8, 9 wins, we are looking at Renji, or aka Raidless Rush. So yeah, this deck's conception over last Tuesday, and it has spiked up play in drones. This deck is showing to being a really dominant force in the meta, and let's be honest, I don't know how long this deck will exist. Players are starting to get better at understanding how to play against the deck, how to answer the deck, and it's becoming more and more apparent that the deck might tick down in a little while, but we'll see. Like, even at my locals, there are a bunch of Raidless Bleaches and stuff like that, but there isn't enough data to keep going with it. I think the big thing about it is that they are just not liking the play style. It's just not what they're liking, so a lot of players are starting to bench it. Even at our local scene, even though it is a good deck, just people aren't a big fan of it. But then we also have Green Toshi kind of picking up the pace as well. No surprise there. Toshiro actually does really well into Kurapika, and if Toshi does well into Kurapika, that means it's going to be more consistently showing up. Raidless Bleach, I think it does really well as well, if you know what they're doing, what they're planning, what their aggression strats are. All that information adds up for the Toshi deck, and boom, that's kind of the big thing for it. And then you do have Purple Ichigo kind of still holding strong in this meta. And no surprise, it looks like we're kind of just diverting into rush, mid-range, and a mid-range as well. And then you have basically Kurapika being the dominant threat. So basically, it's a you got the king, can you knock down the king kind of strats. We also saw that some sort of variant of the Quincy deck is popping up almost in top 4s consistently, and that's where I'm kind of putting him. I've seen at least 4 of it, but if you can notice that there are starting now to be a very big bridge gap between what's good and what's extremely good. So this is starting to bridge right here, where we're starting to see that players are just finally got enough product, they got what they needed, probably mail days come through, and we're going to start seeing these all move up to here eventually being their consistency. But for right now, I kind of expect this right like this for a bit. But taking a look though, now you're seeing the bridge gap. Byakuya decks is definitely starting to fall down a little bit. There was only 2 tops. Even I struggled this week. Just a lot better, stronger decks now appearing up, so I got to change up my list a bit to kind of adapt with the meta. Still need to adapt. Specified slots took up 2, then you have bombers taking up 2, Zoldix took up 2 as well. Then we did get a new spice into the top 4s, and one of them was a pure rush deck that I would classify. This deck only plays zeros and caps at 3, and basically tries to rush down your opponent very quickly. Then you have like Captain Yamamoto and Gon doing their shenanigans as well. So let's get into the looks of the decks themselves. First off, we do have one of the 6th place here. This is a Kurapika list. There was nobody posting their pictures of Kurapika. I kind of expect this. So Leon here, right here, Leon, oh, whatever, Leo here. Leo, this man here, right here. Very interesting card indeed. I think there's one that's an on play that gets you back any of your characters, and you basically have a way of getting Kurapika back. And then you do have this one that's basically an impact piece. So now you don't have just 4-8 impacts. You have 4-8-11 impacts. That is now bringing up some very needed information. I know some lists, like even this one, topped more closer at our locals. I think it was a very similar list where they use both of these. It's not a bad strat, just because now you only need to find one Kurapika and you can just cycle it back in, which is not a bad trade-off, because if your opponent can answer your Kurapikas, that's a problem. Then we do have Green Gon. Green Gon is just a good starter deck in generalization. It always kind of just wants to do what it wants. You know, Hisoka just kind of forces blocks and trades unfavorably. And just taking a look across the board, just really solid. And then we're getting into Raidless Bleach territory. If you guys don't know what this deck does, this basically uses Renji to throw in for punches because of the damage 2 output. But you're basically slamming that. You cap out at 4. You don't go really that much higher except for Ichigo here. And then basically you go Ichigo punch, Rukia punch, 4,000 DP, 4,000 DP, 4,000 DP. And then your opponent's got to answer it. And sometimes that's not enough for them to handle. They're going to get smacked in the face really badly. And I mean, that's all it takes, right? Just to get smacked around a little bit. So with Ichigo, Rukia, and Renji just coming in and then having Ichigo to removal, I mean, yeah, you don't really raid until you're either needing to remove something with Ichigo or use your 4-drop Ichigo to get impact for game. So keeping this in mind, knowing that this deck plays like it does, you're just got to be smart and play around it a little bit. And now we got another Raidless Bleach as well. This one, I think they actually, nope, they didn't even play the Rukia. There are some lists that are starting to tack up Rukia as well. But taking a look, Raidless Bleach is doing Raidless Bleach shenanigans. Then we do have another one. This was Tyler's Raidless Bleach. This deck is... Raidless feels outrageous right now. I mean, yeah, the problem comes down to fundamentally in this game right now, there are very little answers to this that really punish this strat. I mean, once we get, you know, the Fingers deck from Jujutsu Kaisen, I think this deck will start seeing a little less play, and then once we get the Code Geass, I see this deck falling off a little bit more, and then by the time we get One Punch Man, I think this deck will just completely disappear. I think there'll be just enough decks in the format where now this deck can't just cheese the wins that it wants, because if there is good removal, as long as there's good removal and easy access to removal, by the way, guys, that can just keep getting these 4Ks off the board, your opponent's going to just fall off from this deck. Then we did get a Byakuya list. Very interesting. They're playing 1 Nell, 2 Senbone Sakurai, Getsuga Tensho at 2. And then we see a bunch of unique strats and choices here, to be honest with you. There is no Rukia, by the way, in this list. This was second place. This was completely focusing on Renji and Byakuya, and I think I might give this a whirl. This might actually be what I've been looking for. Maybe we just take out Rukia and go straight for Renji for punishment with Byakuya plays, because if you can go Byakuya minus the board by 1,000 and then raid Renji to minus the board, kill something by 3,000, I think we might actually be able to do something with this. We'll have to see. I need to test it personally. Maybe it was that if I'm going to be controlling the board with my, you know, Byakuyas, maybe I need to control the board a little bit better with Renjis and stuff like that, applying pressure. I mean, even though you might want to just slam down Renji just for the 1 AP punch 2, that might be worth the strat to try. It's putting that aggression there with the Renji that I think might be what we need to do to test. Then we do have Unohana. Unohana being really good, aka Toshi deck. This is RJ's list. He does really well as a player. He's a very, very much good at crafting decks and figuring out what he needs to do and making the deck work. So Toshi doing Toshi things. And here's another one from another local player. He did the Eggman event and got 4th place. Taking a look closer at it, definitely the 13 court guard squad at 2 to search out pieces. I love that they have Yamato in this list as well, just because he's an energy generator. And, you know, if he trades with something, they're getting banished instead. So they don't get a way of fueling in the purple, which, again, is a smart play. I mean, he's got a lot of big booty 4,000 DP threats. And then here we go to the more normalized kind of regular Purple Bleach that you kind of see the Ichigo list. What I also noticed is that they're starting to tech in some sort of mill strat if they're going to be focusing on the mills. And this one uses the research and development card. This card basically looks at the top of your deck and then X amount of cards. I forget. I think it's 4 or 5. One of the twos. Then you basically add a card into your hand. Doesn't matter what card it is. So you can get a Getsuga Tencho if you needed to, or you get a piece that you needed, and then you get to put in your trash. So basically, it's a generate 2 to trash, 1 card to hand. I think that's pretty good in a sense and a vacuum. I like that we're starting to tech in Nels as well. I think it's a smart move to start transitioning into this mindset that we might need to do some trimming or pruning of certain things. You know, Nell especially being one of those cards that you want to have to negate block impact, especially when you get later games. If they don't have a way of sniping, Nell being out there to block or chump block a impact character might be the strat we kind of need to start going forwards to. And who knows, this might be the way we go about it. Might not, but a lot of players are not playing any negate impacts, and we're starting to lose out in that tempo rush. And I think Nell needs to start coming into lists, especially against Kurapika. I know he has snipe and he can attack what he wants, but there are going to be turns where they have their impact and Nell's on the board, and you can at least negate the impact. And then here's another more concept of the first place 11 in San Francisco, California. This is a more basic strat that you kind of see. Okay, this is one that I've seen by RJ play, very similar. Doesn't play the Royal Palace, but like I said, people are starting to tech in cards to help mill themselves faster. And it's not a bad idea, to be honest with you. I think it's smart sometimes to have a way of milling yourself up a little bit quicker to get your pieces going. And being able to look at the top of your deck is kind of sometimes important, because now you are scrying to go like, well, this Getsuga, I need this Getsuga coming to my hand, so we're not going to mill right now out the rest of my pieces, so we'll add that piece to our hand. So I think adding the Royal Palace might be another strat as well, or doing the research and development. Both are great effects that might see some more benefit play more with testing. So I definitely like where things are going, and we'll see if that kind of just feels out. And now let's get into one of the interesting lists. This one went undefeated at a 12-man, if I remember I talked to them, but this is basically straight up focusing on a rush strat. So basically what you do with this list is you slam down one. So if you're going first, you slam down 1 into attack area. You're only putting yellow into the back to get jail and the fear live when you need it. And then basically once you get your 3 curve, you're basically using like Quincy's, you know, Bankai to basically unsuspend, get bodies on board more and more. You're playing a bunch of zeros, so you're just going to rush strat them. Most players need to do their setup, so by the time this deck goes burr, you're most likely cleared out most of their security, as long as they don't have like Getsuga Tenchos or, you know, their removal in the base. You can actually keep tempo. The only thing you have to really worry about is things that say just play something onto the board. That kind of is scary, but I mean, with fear and jail, you hold these off until you're ready to just kill. And that is just kind of where you're standing with this list. So hopefully you guys find this information useful, beneficial, whatever. So I think this is a good synopsis to kind of just see. And we found out Crollo is kind of just faded off a little bit. I mean, we could see an uptick eventually, but right now I feel like if you're going to go for a Hunter x Hunter event, it looks like Kurapika is kind of your go-to, especially for rare battles. Then you do have Bleach being Bleach. Bleach will definitely be a slaughter bath between a lot of decks and people developing for that meta. And we're going to see what happens. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.